Hello friends, I am Amarnath. Today we will discuss the recently announced Supreme Court order on the Karnataka MLAs, where Supreme Court has ordered the 15 dissident MLAs and provided a freedom to opt out of the ongoing assembly sessions. At the same time, the Supreme Court order has acknowledged the Speaker's discretion of deciding the resignations of the MLAs when required. So, the impact of this order is that the dissident legislators, they can defy a party whip without a fear of getting disqualified under class 2 of 10th schedule. So this is what the impact of Supreme Court order on the MLAs. That means the order says that the dissident MLAs, they can have freedom from getting presented in the ongoing assembly sessions. They can get abstained from ongoing assembly sessions. They can defy the party whip without they having the fear of getting disqualified. So this is what the Supreme Court order says. That means defying a party whip here by this order will not be a ground for disqualification. The MLAs need not fear about disqualifying under anti-defection laws. Right? So if you have a close look on anti-defection laws, it clearly says that class 2 mandates that legislator is liable for defection if he or she abstains from voting in such house against the orders of the party. That means class 2 of 10th schedule clearly states that, right, a legislator, an MLA is liable for defection if he or she fails, if he or she abstains from voting against to the directions of the party. So whenever an MLA or a legislator fails to act on the orders of the party, fails to act on the whip issued by the party, then under this class 2, the concerned MLA can be disqualified. Right? That is what class 2 says. So if we recollect Article 191 of the Constitution, Article 191 of Constitution, class 2. So Article 191 of the Constitution talks about disqualification of members of Legislative Assembly. So we have class 1 as well as class 2. Under class 1, the members will be disqualified for violation of Constitution, whereas class 2 says that the members will be disqualified for violating the 10th schedule. That is, a person shall be disqualified from being a member of Legislative Assembly or a council if he disqualifies under 10th schedule of the Constitution. So whenever a legislator is disqualified under 10th schedule, then he is deemed to be disqualified under Article 191 of the Constitution, and it will cause a vacancy. It will cause a vacancy in the House. Right? So this is what Article 191 says. Right? So if you take the disqualifications on the ground of defection, it clearly states that the Constitution lays down the person shall be disqualified from being a member of the house, either house of state legislature, if he is so disqualified on the grounds of defection under provisions of 10th schedule. And this is decided by the chairman in the case of Legislative Council. It is decided by the Speaker in the case of Legislative Assembly. That means this Article 195 clearly lays down a ground for disqualifying a member, saying that a legislator can be disqualified if he violates 10th schedule. So disqualification under 10th schedule amounts to disqualification under Article 191 of the Constitution. And any case of disqualification for violating the anti-defection laws will be decided by chairman of Legislative Council or Speaker of Legislative Assembly. So there is a clear ground mentioned in the Constitution under Article 191 of the Constitution. Right? So similarly, the court order has acknowledged the powers of Speaker in accepting the resignation on an appropriate time. That means speaker is left free to decide on the issue in accordance with Article 191 of the Constitution and Rule 202 of Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business of Legislative Assembly of Karnataka, which are framed in accordance with Article 208 of the Constitution. So here you should note one point. Every state legislature has the power to make their own rules of procedure and conduct of business of state legislative assembly in accordance with Article 208 of the Constitution. Right? So 208 of the Constitution empowers the state legislature to make their own rules for their conducting of their own business. So here Supreme Court order has acknowledged the power of speaker in determining the resignation, in taking a decision on resignation, and speaker always acts on the established procedures of the legislative assembly. So if you take these powers and functions of speaker, so this powers and functions and the grounds of disqualifications, they are taken from Indian Polity authored by Lakshmikant. Right? So in Lakshmikant it is very clear that speaker has the power and duties. He decides on the questions of disqualification arising out of the grounds of defection under the provisions of 10th schedule. That means speaker has the power, speaker has the final power on the questions of disqualification of member of assembly arising out of the ground of defection under the provisions of 10th schedule. Right? And it is speaker who appoints the chairman of all the committees, and he himself is the chairman of the committee on business advisory. So he chairs, speaker chairs the business advisory committee. He chairs the rules committee of the house. So all the business of the legislative assembly, may it be the ordinary business of the assembly or may it be the business dealing with the no confidence motion. So everything will be decided by this business advisory council, which is chaired by speaker of legislative assembly. So as the head of this BAC, as the head of business advisory committee, it is the speaker who has the final power in deciding the proceedings, in deciding the business of the house. So when to conduct no confidence motion, when to go for trust vote, right? The decision on resignations by MLAs, it is the final power given by the Constitution to the Speaker of Legislative Assembly in the case of states and the Speaker of Lok Sabha in the case of Parliament. Right? So here the final power is clearly given to Speaker. So it is Speaker who will decide the time and date of no confidence motion. So this is what another impact of Supreme Court judgment. Right? So another point to note here in this issue is, right, the speaker's grounds for rejection of resignation remains limited. So here this power of speaker, either in accepting or rejecting the resignation of MLAs is limited. Right? It is limited because the decision of speaker on disqualification of MLAs is liable for judicial review. Right? And speaker can reject a resignation only if it is not in a proper format or if it is found to be involuntary. So speaker can accept a resignation only if it is a voluntary act of the MLA. That is, whenever MLA voluntarily resigns from a party, whenever an MLA voluntarily, that is without any external pressure or force, if an MLA acts on his own, in his own mind, then speaker should accept the resignation. If speaker thinks that if it is an involuntary act, then speaker can reject the resignation given by the MLAs. So here speaker has every power. So speaker has every discretion either to accept or reject the resignation tendered by MLAs. Right? So here this power of speaker is limited because this power, the decision of speaker is subjected to judicial review. So we have cases. We have cases where Supreme Court clearly laid down, clearly said that this power of speaker is restricted, right? So, if you take some of the cases on this issue, so in Ravi Nayak versus Union of India case, right? Supreme Court clearly said that, right? Even in the absence of formal resignation, right? Inference can be drawn from the conduct of the member that he has voluntarily given up his membership to a political party, right? That means under under paragraph clause 2 1a of 10th schedule, right? A person can be disqualified if he voluntarily gives up his membership, right? Second, a member also can be disqualified when he or she votes or abstains from voting contrary to the directives issued by the party. That is, a person can be disqualified whenever he either abstains from voting or votes against to the directives issued by the party. That is, whenever a member of the party, whenever an MLA acts against the directions of the party, then under paragraph 2 1b, right? Paragraph 2 1b, right? A person can be disqualified. So here, if you take this Supreme Court order is clearly against to its previous judgment given in Ravi Nayak versus Union of India case. Now in the present order, Supreme Court says that the 15 dissident MLAs, they have every freedom to opt out of ongoing assembly sessions. That is, they are being given a free run by Supreme Court, where by this order, right, the MLAs can get absent from the ongoing proceedings without having the fear of being disqualified. But earlier in 1994, Supreme Court clearly said that, right, any abstaining from voting will be a ground. Any act against to the orders of party, any act against to the whip of the party will be a ground under para 2 1b of 10th schedule for disqualification, right? And coming to the power of speaker, not only the power of speaker, but even the importance of it. So in G. Vishwanath versus the Honorable Speaker of Tamil Nadu, right? In this case, in 1996, Supreme Court clearly said that, right? Any expulsion because of non-acting of the party's whip will result to the disqualification of the member. That means, right, if a person fails to act on the whip, if a person fails to adhere to whip issued by the party, failure to adhere to the whip issued by party will be a ground for disqualifying. So even in this case, Supreme Court clearly said that, right, a person non-adherence to whip issued by political party will be a ground for disqualification. And in the third case, that is in Kihoto Holohan versus Jachilu case, in this case, Supreme Court clearly said that the decision of speaker is subjected to judicial review. That is, though speaker has every power, this speaker's power is subjected for judicial review. So this is what clearly said by Supreme Court. So here in the Supreme Court order on this freedom given to MLAs, all these issues are being touched out, right? So one is, the order gave the freedom for the MLAs to opt out of the ongoing assembly sessions without having the fear of disqualification. So if you take UPSC, right, now where questions can be expected? So questions can be expected on the ongoing issue. That is, directly question can be on Supreme Court order. But in reality, the scope of asking questions directly on the order is very less. So for majority of the time, chances are more on asking questions from disqualification under Article 191. So vacation of seat by MLA under Article 190. So that is, so these are either on Article 191 or Article 190 of the Constitution. The grounds of disqualification under anti-defection law, that is under para 21A or para 21B. So UPSC will try to ask questions on basics of the issue. So though this is a burning issue in the country now, though it is an important from polity point of view, majority of the time the questions will be asked on the basics, either on the basic articles of the Constitution, or questions will be asked on powers and duties of the speaker, or question may be asked on, right, the grounds of anti-defection law for disqualifying. So this is where UPSC can focus on prelims, and straight away question can be asked on mains. So this is the first part of the issue. So as it is an ongoing issue, we will have another part on this issue after the total climax of this Karnataka crisis. I hope you have understood. Thank you.